Welcome to the Tech Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Vincent, and on this podcast, I interview people in tech. As always, this show is sponsored by the Consulting Launch Method, where I help experienced tech professionals build their own consulting business alongside their day job without spending years figuring out the business side. We've helped clients go from initial idea to first customer in 90 days and six figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. I'm pleased to announce that on today's show, our guest is Mohit Joshi. And Mohit is the AI transformation lead architect at Ernst Young. And I was excited to hear about his experience and his career and what decisions he's made. So Mohit, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So the question I always ask and I always start with, right, and it's more kind of a backwards looking question, but looking back at your career, what's the decision or the project that you're most proud of and why? Is there anything in particular that made it stand out to you?
That's a quite a good question. I think, to be honest, I'm proud of all the projects I've worked on. It's probably the reason why did I come into this profession, right? That's probably and I kind of stuck to my guts in terms of the decision to come into this profession. So just to give you background, by training or by sort of my degree or whatever you want to call it, I am not a software engineer from degree, right? I have a degree in accounts and economics, or we call it commerce in India, right? But I had this passion for technology, and mainly because to see how the technology actually changes the business and how it transforms the business. Early in the years, as my dad was a banker, so he used to work in banks, and I've seen him doing all the ledger accounts and everything by hand in the large books. And as soon as sort of the technology came in, his job was quite easy. And at the end of the day, instead of him tallying everything manually, click a button and everything tallies. And I was so fascinated about, how his life had changed because of technology, right? And I was always fascinated with this. And the decision, it was quite hard. If anyone of your audiences are from India, they would know. If you're not, a science background or engineer background, getting a job in India in that time was quite difficult because everyone was engineer, right? So of course, it was struggle. But stuck to decision, say, well, I want to do this. I got into it, and this is history really. So I think I'm proud of sticking to my gut and actually being in this profession. And a lot of people really struggle about, what do I really want to do in my life, and do I really like my job? And my answer was quite easy. I like this job. I want to do this sort of thing. So that's the sort of most proud.
And how long ago was this?
Wow, it was.
Or should I not ask this question?
That's fine. It's about 11. No, not 11 actually. About 21 years ago. So yeah.
And those sort of basically technology or technological change to improve the way people do things, and you stuck to your gut. So was there what decision did you make after that, right? So you stuck to your gut. You remained in technology. So which sort of, because your technology is quite broad. So, So how did you kind of decide to kind of move into this kind of this role, or did you start in a different kind of role to begin with?
So I started with a very basic sort of role where I was to do lots of database related work. And I found it, because I wasn't a software engineer, I wasn't a classical software engineer, it was easy for me to get into technology using databases, right? Or English language standard sort of procedures there. So I got into that. I even remember taking backups of databases on a little cassettes they used to get back in the days. So I had that. But then I think more and more I got into the technology. I understood a couple of things. One is the domain knowledge, right? So you need to understand why the business is asking you to build that technology, right? So what's their driving force? So understanding domain, and then making sure how you produce solutions for the problems, right? So that's the sort of underlying thing for me. and as I grew my career, I was the software engineer in various positions, became manager and whatnot, and then ultimately, sort of, then as the career progresses, I decided to work in architecture and solution architecture is really the sort of the way forward for me, because then I get to do all of the different things. So I speak to business, understand their problems, I speak their language, but then I also then design solution, which is the creative part, and then also speak to the sort of engineers and make sure they design and they sort of develop solution. So I think it's really, great to have that sort of role in there. And with the AI now, everyone's doing AI, obviously, but I think you can really see how AI is transforming the businesses, right? And that's really fantastic to see. Yeah.
That sounds good. And is there, if you were, you have a 20 years of experience. If you go back to your younger self 20 years ago and you start that sort of journey again, knowing what you know now about the technology changes, right, which is always happening, but also and more currently AI, but there's the technology transitions happen all the time, right? It's not AI is not new in that respect. It's accelerating certain things, but it's not new.
Yeah.
What would you actually do differently? Is there any wise lessons you would give your younger self to help maybe accelerate things or do things better or differently?
That's a good question. I think I would say take risks, more risks, and also be at the sort of so you need to look cutting edge technology, right? So you're at forefront of cutting edge technology. Um, um, if you know your basics, everything else is quite easy. I mean, given the technology, the way it's improving right now, AI. I mean, I got business users creating websites and stuff like, I created this. That's fine for prototype, but if you don't know the basics of the engineering and everything else, that quickly falls down. So I think if I was 21 years old, I would say, take risks, know the technology in and out, clear your concepts, clear your basics.
The take risks, say, implies that at some point you didn't take a risk.
Well, I did it in a way, but I think I could have been riskier than what I did. I mean, I could have sort of followed the path for some time and then say, well, I need to go into this technology, so I need to sort of learn myself and do that sort of thing. But I think taking risk is the only way. I mean, if you don't do it by hand, you wouldn't know it, right? That sort of thing. So do it more.
Do more. And is there, do you continue now that those lessons or those things, are you taking more risks now in your current role or in your current life in that way as well?
I think I am taking a lot of risks. I mean, the risks appetite has changed, obviously, and the way I take risks is different. It's more calculated risk right now. But I think, I mean, working with the firm I'm working with, you get to work on the various different technologies and cutting edge technologies. The risk part is more like, well, I can see if I implement this, it is going to benefit. So instead of me waiting for someone else to implement and then follow their footsteps, I'm taking the charge and say, well, let's do this. I can prove this doing this. So I think that's kind of risks I'm taking right now. Again, on the technology side, we are sort of going ahead, implementing anything that come across, etc. So I think, yeah, that's absolutely doing that.
And are there any sort of more honing in on AI, because obviously you're quite as part of your title even, right? So what kind of risk between quotes are you just taking that kind of direction with that?
So I think the thing I follow is fail fast, right? So you would try and do something which is probably not recommended or probably it's not tried before, right? And give an example. So we get lots of data from clients, right? If you and the typical thing is, if your data is wrong, the output is wrong, or data is not good format, or it's not good, the output is not going to be good. But then can you apply AI to actually make the data good, right? And that sort of thing I'm looking at and say, well, that's fine. Data is, I mean, you're not going to ask your clients to send data in a particular format. That's just too much to ask for everyone. When we've got lots of thousands of clients, really. So what I'm doing now is looking at the data and say, well, can we apply AI to standardize the data instead of asking the client, right?
Yeah.
So those sort of things which probably haven't been done before within the firm. So I'm doing that a lot. So that's sort of risk I'm talking about. Again, I touched upon this sort of this domain knowledge point as well, right? I think it's quite important in this age, because as you would see, your core skill sets of writing code, okay, and that's going, and your AI is doing it for you.
Yeah.
What's your real value add? Now, I think there are two things. One is that you are strong technically, so you know your concepts, you know so what AI is doing, you're able to review that.
Yeah.
But also, do you understand what the domain is? Are you able to tell your AI what the problem is and how you want to solve this, etc.? Then are you able to speak the same language to your business or your stakeholders or your clients, right? Because when a client or business stakeholder is now trying to build a tool using AI, they can easily do that for you. But then your value add is basically, well, I'll take it from you because you don't know how to then make it production grade or make it secure enough or whatever. So I will take that from you. And I understand your language. I understand what you're trying to solve. Therefore, I can speak to the same language, and then I can transform into AI, and then also make sure that it's all secure and everything. So I think that's quite important right now in this, in these days. The domain knowledge and your strong basics.
Fair enough. So, I mean, it does resonate a bit, especially with AI. There is a bit of, and if the underlying data is rubbish, then the output is rubbish. If you don't instruct it in the right way, then the output will be rubbish. So it's still someone needs to instruct the AI, and that's where the value add sits.
Yeah.
Largely, I would say. That's it. Now, maybe lastly, what does the next chapter of your career look like for you? Is there certain direction? Maybe what's the next technology risk that you're hanging your hat on? I don't know, but what does a career look like for you in the next several years?
I have a sort of roles I want to, I'm targeting at, everyone targets, highest roles within technology, I think. But for me, I see this world changing, how this sort of, the programming world is changing, how we are transforming the businesses with more and more AI. I think there are two things I want to take risk on. One is the spec-driven development. I'm yet to sort of dive into that right now. So, and how we can actually utilize our senior programmers to make sure that AI is doing the work they're doing, and upskill the junior programmers to say, well, you need to have strong basics again. Going back to the same thing, but without actually cutting any jobs, how we can create more value by using AI, using spec-driven development. So I'm not in a favor of cutting the jobs for junior programmers. I think we need to upskill them and make them it's sort of same as the other senior programmers, and they are able to sort of lead the way as well. So I think spec-driven development is where I want to sort of see take a risk more. Apart from that, I mean, career-wise, highest possible technology position you can have, really. So yeah, that's my next chapter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're currently lead architect already. So, I mean, and you've only been there for Some
3.5 years, yeah.
3.5 years, right? So, yeah, fair enough. No, appreciate the insight. I mean, and I think that your point about not necessarily using AI to make people redundant, but trying to find better ways to keep them in work, or you know,
Yeah.
it's
I
think,
mean, to me, if you ask me, you know, if I do, I mean, I like programming, I like coding, but do I want to write same code again and again? I mean, if you ask any programmers, you know, anywhere you go, you start from the same boilerplate code, same authentication code. You know, you get storage, you write some APIs, a backend code, blah blah. You write same thing again and again. I think the creative mind, you satisfy your creative mind by not writing the code, and it could be for some people, but for me at least, mine is finding solution, and I would be happy for AI to do it, if they can. But my value add is thinking of the solution, making sure it's perfect for what the problem is. So that's where my value add is, and that's why I think I want to basically take a risk on. Yeah.
fantastic. I think on that note is a good way to end. So, the best way for people to get in touch with you is LinkedIn, presumably. Yeah. So I recommend people checking you out, Mohit, on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And as a reminder to everyone listening, the show is sponsored by the Consulting Launch Method, where I help people, experienced tech professionals, build their own consulting business next to their day job without spending years figuring out the business side. We've helped clients go from first idea to first customer in 90 days and 6 figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. Thanks again, Mohit, and until the next episode.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. Bye-bye.